Let's start the news from Bayelsa State. Residents of Obogoro community in the state are calling on both state and federal authorities for urgent intervention as coastal erosion continues to ravage their lands and their homes. The community says more than 300 buildings have been lost to the advancing erosion over the years, leaving many displaced and fearful that Obogoro could soon disappear entirely if nothing is done. Right now, News Central's Biola Festus is in the community and she joins us now with updates. Biola Festus, what can you tell us about the plight of the people in that community?
Where we are is not some waterfront. This is a community at the state capital in Yanagwa local government area in Bayelsa State. Now, look at this. This is the river flowing through their community. Now we hear that this flows from Bayelsa down to the state and to its the adjoining community in this Obogoro. Now, if you look over across the sea, across this water body, that is the place where water used to demarcate the land from sea. But right now, over the years, this water has been encroaching this community. Now, we have members of the community on the ground and would like to get them to speak to us. Thank you so much for having us in your community. Now, I need you to tell me, how bad has this been?
Biola Festus, unfortunately, we can't hear your guest. If you can hear me, we can't hear your guest. So
can you hear us now, Blessing?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, he wasn't audible enough. He was trying to explain that when this house was built in 2013, the water wasn't at this level. Now, let's pan to the house. There is a house just by me here, and just a step away is this water body that is now a threat to their existence. Well, this house has been here. I hear that this is the first house on this street, and the owner of the house is also right here. I would like him as well to speak to us. Can you tell us how this water has been a threat to your house?
It's been a wonderful something to my life. As you see me, I'm a mechanic by profession. My name is Safawari David. I'm from Upama Midtown in Southern local government area of Bayelsa State. Right now, since 2013, February 15th, I built this house. From my house to the waterfront was about 16 blocks ahead. But look at today. There's no way. My children have been a threat. I cannot sleep nights. When time gets to 10 o'clock, I will be like a washing dog till they will break. I need to drive my car down from this roadside to the primary school overside there. Papa's lot was there. Also the field, and I drive down to connect the community road. But now look at it. Look at this, about 15 apartments is there. But now I don't have people trying to go and make an attempt to build this kind of a house, mighty house. So I want government to intervene, quickly intervene, save the lives of and the properties of our generation.
Thank you. So, Blessing, he did mention that before now, he used to drive his car down here, but it appears he's got no car park anymore. And this boat right here, this boat over here, is his new vehicle. And look at it, it's just parked in front of his house. And that is because of the erosion that has been ravaging his community. And of course, his house will be the next to be hit if care is not taken, I beg your pardon, if the right things to be done are not done. The environmentalists have called for ocean embankment for this community to ensure that this ravaging flood doesn't continue. Well, let's talk to the last person here. She also lives in this community, and her house is just behind this very house right here. Let's hear from her as well. How this has been a challenge.
I get so this river, very far away from us. All the they want this all collapse because of this. That's really
All right, Biola Festus, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we can't get the audio very clearly from your guest, but we get the point, and we appreciate them even speaking about it. Obogoro community is under threat if nothing is done about it, because they are at a threat of being swept away by the floods. Meanwhile, compliance has been mixed across the country as members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities began their 2-week warning strike on Monday. From lecture halls to administrative offices, the level of participation varies from one university to another. And while some campuses have seen full withdrawal of academic activities, others continue to operate in partial or limited capacity. Our correspondent, Sumayya Abubakar, has more.
And some offices under lock and key. It's clear that lecturers have complied with ASUU's directive, leaving students uncertain about what lies ahead.
ASUU, as a labor union, operates on collective bargain. What an agreement between the employer and the employee. So that increase is a wage award. A wage award is a gift that somebody can wake up tomorrow and say, our income can no longer carry this. He can change his mind tomorrow. So ASUU is appreciative of that increase, but ASUU is asking for a salary structure that is produced from a bargain between the employer and the employee.
The union's September ultimatum to the government to honor the renegotiated agreement was met with silence. With no progress made, ASUU says it had no choice but to act.
What does it take to append your signature for what you consulted the committee? Because the committee, in every process, they will go back to whoever has said the committee. They will tell them this is what we've discussed. They will accept, go back to the table again, they harmonize, and they have arrived at what they submitted to them since February. If they refuse to do nothing, Nigeria should expect the worst.
If the federal government, who has set up a committee, and the committee have recommended to the federal government, what we just need now is only the signature of the federal government.
The 2-week warning strike affects both federal and state universities across the country, halting lectures, research, and administrative duties nationwide.
To me, I would just plead with the government. They should just do whatever it is possible to end this ASUU strike of a thing. I'm supposed to have exam today, but with this ASUU strike now, we're not doing the exam.
It's making everything so slow for us that most of our mates will have even graduated before we even move to the next level, which is very, very bad.
I just know that I have to leave school beside and face the reality of the world, face what I actually want to do, have another thing aside for education. I mean, and this country that we are is not guaranteed that education will give you anything.
It's just me working on more things that I have, and just like my personal development and working on internships and the likes.
As students wander around campus uncertain of what comes next, many fear that this might just be the beginning of another long break from learning. Both ASUU and the federal government now face renewed pressure to return to the negotiating table, and fast. In Lagos, for News Central, Victor Mbadike.
All right, that was a report filed by Victor Mbadike on the industrial strike action. And for more on this development, our correspondent, my colleague Omolola Olalade, also joins us live from the University of Lagos. As you know, the strike actions have become a norm, and she has been monitoring compliance and reactions from the lecturers. Omolola, if you can hear me, what is the situation like at Unilag where you are currently? Are the lecturers fully complying with the strike directive?
Well, pleasantly at the University of Lagos, as you well know, and then, I was able to speak with a few lecturers, particularly the chairman of ASUU here at Unilag. He's not present in the premises now, but we spoke on phone, and he said, of course, that, there aren't any activities going on in Unilag, no academic activities. Lecturers are not, going about their daily activities, and that is because, they cannot be going against what the national body has said concerning them going on the 2 weeks warning strike. He did say that this, this strike is long overdue, especially considering when they had to go on a protest last month. He said that, if I could remember correctly, that we even went to cover that there was a protest by all public universities in Nigeria. That was last month, and they had to go on that protest just to prove a point to the government that unless they meet their demands, they might as well go on the strike. And now that the demands are not met, they have resorted to going on the strike. However, I spoke to the lecturers, and then they said that yes, that this strike is long overdue, and then it is time that they had to go on the strike. That they thought that after the protest, that's the nationwide protest, that the government will actually take them seriously. But of course, nothing like that has happened. And then they are surprised that the federal government is saying that there isn't any justifiable reason for them to go on strike, as their request has been met. But on the other hand, ASUU is saying that none of their demands have been met.
All right, Omolalade, thank you for the updates on that, and definitely we look forward to seeing how this turns out. A group of retired police officers earlier today converged at the main entrance of the National Assembly complex in Abuja, calling for their removal from the contributory pension scheme. The retirees, many of them elderly, described the scheme as unfair and a killer policy that has denied them access to their full entitlement. They're urging lawmakers to urgently amend the law to exempt them from the arrangement. Now, for more on this protest and the response from the authorities as well, our correspondent Idong Joseph joins us live from the National Assembly. Hello, Idong. What are the key demands of these protesters, these retirees? How large was the turnout today?
Good afternoon, blessings. I'm currently at the main entrance of the National Assembly, where, as we stated, a group of retired police officers are demanding that they should be removed from the contributory pension. One of their main demands is removal from the contributory pension, which they have said it has not favored them for quite the time that they have been under the scheme. And that other security agencies have been removed from this scheme and just left with the police officers, both from the commissioner of police down to the lower rank, are still left in this scheme. So they said what they want is all police officers to be removed from this scheme. And according to them, that only the National Assembly can take that action, and that is why they have come here to protest. So I have some of them here, and I would like to speak to the leader of this very group that's here today, and that's CSP Lawal, who's a retired police officer. And so I asked him so that we hear from him more. Okay, please. We noticed that like 2 months back, there was a similar protest at the force headquarters regarding this. And now you're here. What are your demands? Why are you here?
We are here simply because we want to be exempted from the contributory pension scheme, because it's a pillar disease for us. We have been suffering. It is not favorable to us. So we need total exit so that the pension work can be established. Because NPF pension is the saving feature of everything the police pension board. NPF pension is a different entity at all. It's a company owned by Mr. Pedro. They run for AIG to Mr. Pedro. They are the one who owns the company. They are sorting our blood because all our money, they are the one controlling it. So the federal government should make sure that this NPF pension license is scrapped out. Because it's a disaster. Okay, they are not in the system. They are not in the system, and they are controlling our money.
I noticed that you guys mounted canopy down there. So why this? Why the canopy?
It means that we are no longer ready to accept any promise. No promise again. We are not believing on any promise because we have been receiving thousands of promises, all unfulfilled. So this time around, 1 month, 2 weeks, 3 days, we know. All our condition has passed that stage. We are in need of very alert from our salary.
Just be brief. How soon are you going to? This group is going to last
until further notice. Until we are evicted from the contributory pension scheme. That is why we say no more promise. We are not going to lose any place. We are not beating anybody. We are not abusing anybody. But we will remain here. Because our president will be reminding the lawmakers that we are some human beings need consideration.
Okay, thank you. No. Okay, you can hear from retired Chief Superintendent of Police in the person of Lawal. He has raised their demand that they want to be removed. They want all police officers to be removed from this scheme. That this scheme, according to them, they said it's a killer disease, and they don't want to be part of this scheme. Over to you, Blessings.
All right, thank you, Idong Joseph, for the update on the contributory pension scheme. We've seen that over and over again. Even the wives of the retirees have come out to protest, and we're waiting for a response from the authorities. We go on a short break now. It's still the 12 report. When we come back, we've got more stories. Stay with us. Now let's talk politics. Ahead of the forthcoming Anambra State governorship election, civil society organizations under the Anambra Situation Room have met with the state resident electoral commissioner to get updates on INEC's level of preparedness. The groups also raised concerns about issues that have affected the credibility of past elections, urging the electoral body to address them before the upcoming poll. Our correspondent, Victor Ajayi, is live at the venue of the dialogue to give us more updates on this. Hello, Victor. What key issues have been raised so far during this engagement between the civil society groups and the Resident Electoral Commission in light of the forthcoming election?
My blessing. Thank you. So over here, the dialogue has been on for a while, discussing concerns towards the poll. The INEC and also the Resident Electoral Commissioner of Anambra State has confirmed that 16 political parties have been accredited to participate in the poll. Also, they briefed on concerns on preparations, how to ensure that the electoral process goes smoothly, which include talks about the beavers, as well as ensuring that citizens participate fully in the electoral process. Also, they had in attendance the Commissioner of Police from Anambra State, who raised concerns and also assured that they are going to make the environment safe for the voting and the electoral process. They also mentioned that they were going to deploy officers and also raid the black spots that have been noted in the state, so as to ensure that the hoodlum operations and activities are mitigated. Also, blessings right here, we have a representative from one of the CSOs who is going to speak to us and give us more updates. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Can you give us your name and your designation?
My name is Austin Agbe, and I work for the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network, WADEMS.
All right, so sir, can you give us the key concerns that were discussed in the engagement, sir?
So few of them is key. You know, coming from the 2021 Guba election in Anambra, where Anambra State recorded the lowest in history of turnout of voters, which was about 10%. And part of the key concern today is how will Anambra move from just a record low 10% of voters who will be determining a governor of the entire state, which is very funny, right? So part of what has come up today is INEC is they have claimed that they were going to work towards enhancing that turnout of voters. But beyond that, Anambra is a domain somehow where insecurity has consistently been recorded with. You know, Anambra is almost synonymous with insecurity or violence. But the police have told us today that don't worry, that in the last couple of months, there hasn't been any violence skirmish, and that even the primary election, where party had to conduct primary election to determine their flag bearer, that there was nothing like violence. I mean, that's good news. But beyond that, which is very important, is the turnout of registered voters. And INEC has said that on election day, you cannot blame INEC that people on the street playing football. But again, how can INEC increase the confidence level of these people who play football to actually turn out and vote? That's a huge concern. But the INEC has asked that civil society to support the process by helping to mobilize
voters to that poll. And I think that most of our members, most of the situational members in the state, in fact, with funding from FCDO, they've been mobilizing, doing all manner of sensitization to pull out voters to vote on election day.
All right, thank you so much, sir. So our blessings, this is what we have from here today. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much, Victor Ajayi, for the update on that. That's the political conversation going on in light of the forthcoming elections, regarding INEC's preparedness. Now, the National Assembly has proposed moving the 2027 presidential and governorship elections to November 2026. The proposal was unveiled during a public hearing in Abuja by the Senate and House committees on electoral matters. The Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2025 seeks to hold elections no later than 185 days before the expiration of the tenure of incumbent presidents and governors. It also aims to shorten election petition timelines, reducing tribunal judgments from 180 to 90 days and appellate court decisions from 90 to 60 days to ensure faster resolution of disputes. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has welcomed the proposal, describing it as a step toward improved transparency and reduced electoral conflict. However, the bill has sparked mixed reactions, with some political parties supporting the change, while others raise concern about logistics and judicial preparedness. Meanwhile, the National Assembly has reaffirmed its commitment to comprehensive electoral reforms ahead of the 2027 general elections. Lawmakers say the move is part of ongoing efforts to strengthen Nigeria's democracy and rebuild citizens' trust in the electoral process. And this assurance came during a public hearing on the bill to repeal the Electoral Act of 2022 and enact the Electoral Act 2025, held at the National Assembly in Abuja. All right, my colleague, News Central's correspondent Sagir Ibrahim, packaged the reports which we'll be bringing to you much later. But in the meantime, Sagir Ibrahim is on standby to give us updates on the development. Hello, Sagir Ibrahim. What exactly is the conclusion so far regarding this topic?
The amendment that is being proposed at the moment is for Section 285 and 139 of the Electoral Act to provide for a 185-day period for the prosecution of elections and for addressing all issues regarding electoral matters, be it prosecuting the election and also adjudicating the election. This, the committee is saying, would allow to address several issues that have emanated from elections and how it has delayed the process, especially after handover, of office from predecessor to successor. We've seen situations where, sadly, blessings, you see that months after certain individuals take office, we still see cases with regards to their elections being prosecuted, be it at the state level or even the federal level, which a lot of individuals have said has caused some form of distraction, to governance, creating an unnecessary focus on politics rather than on governance. So this time, the amendment that is being proposed by the Committee on Electoral Reform is to ensure that the elections is streamlined, to ensure that all matters regarding these issues, elections, voting, and also adjudication are addressed at once. If you look at it from May 29, minus 100.
All right, we're still talking about the electoral reforms, and hopefully we can reconnect with Sagir Ibrahim's audio to get more of that. But in the meantime, we go on a short break. It's still the 12 report, and when we come back, we've got more stories. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Stakeholders have called for increased investment in innovation, food systems that can withstand Nigeria's unique challenges. This was during a high-level panel in Abuja, where discussions focused on strengthening local production, improving market access, and promoting sustainable agricultural practices. All right, let's circle back to Sagir to talk about the political decisions earlier on the electoral reform. Sagir Ibrahim, if you can hear us, what is the update and what has the conclusion been so far?
Yes, blessings, like I was saying earlier, apologies for the interruption there. So these amendments are to ensure that all of the issues regarding Nigeria's electoral process, from voting down to even adjudication at the court, are attended to and conclusively dealt with before May 29th which is the date set aside for swearing in. Blessings, what they are pushing for is a situation where all of these issues are addressed and then whomever it is that becomes victorious, either from the election or from the court processes that emanate from the election, will then be sworn in as the elected individual on May 29. So this addresses the issues where we've seen in the past certain individuals who are sworn into office and subsequently removed by the courts for one reason or the other because the election into office was found to be questionable. Now, among many other issues, aside the amendment of that, expectation is also for PVCs no longer being compulsory. The question around whether the PVCs are still feasible, considering the fact that the current givers devices do not recognize them as also being brought to the front burner. So this time, amendment is going to provide such that individuals can go to the polling unit with their NIN and also bring their permanent voters card when necessary. These are some of the amendments that Nigerians should expect to see after the new amendment is made to the Electoral Act. It goes on and on and on, but then these are the issues that dominated the conversation during the public hearing.
All right, Sagir Ibrahim, thank you so much for the update on that. Now we'll be taking Sagir Ibrahim's a package on this to get a fuller view of what's happening. We'll take that subsequently. But in the meantime, let's still talk food security. As part of efforts to make Nigeria a food secure nation, the House of Representatives Committee on Agricultural Production and Services has held a public hearing to deliberate on 3 key bills aimed at transforming the country's agricultural sector.
At this gathering are development partners, policymakers and agricultural experts gathered to discuss strategies aimed at investing in innovative food systems that can tackle hunger and drive sustainable development. United Nations representative present at the forum reiterated the UN support for Nigeria's food security efforts via programs aimed at empowering local farmers and reducing post-harvest losses.
UN, through its different agencies, is going to do much for food security.
Speakers say that improving critical infrastructure such as storage, processing and transport will not only reduce losses but also create jobs for young Nigerians.
We must invest in critical infrastructure and value chains, particularly in storage, in transport and in processing. This will reduce the losses, will stabilize prices and create jobs for the young people.
The World Food Programme says that it is already investing heavily in Nigeria's local agriculture with an aim to boosting food security and improving livelihoods in rural areas.
We're investing, at the time when I went to Rome, over $200 million a year into the local agricultural economy. Buying food, giving vouchers to people so they can get food at camps, employing about 360 retailers that bring the food to the camps, or just cash transfers where people buy food on their own.
Nigeria's Minister of Agriculture, Abubakar Kiyayi, says that modern storage systems and locally driven production initiatives are key to boosting farmers' income.
So when you have modern silo systems in such areas, that would be able to increase the income that would be generated to the farmers.
Participants, however, warn that without policy continuity, such efforts may not yield lasting impact.
The biggest problem I see with our country is the lack of policy continuity. We have a democracy and we have governments for 4 years. Unfortunately, what seems to happen is that every time we have an election, a new government comes in, it's almost as if everybody starts on a clean slate.
Speakers say that collaboration, innovation, and consistency in policy implementation remain the backbone of achieving food security and sustainable agricultural transformation in Nigeria. In Abuja, for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Let's go back to political matters. In Enugu State, Governor Peter Mbah has officially defected from the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, to the ruling All Progressives Congress, the APC. Governor Mbah said his decision followed deep reflection, noting that leadership sometimes demands painful decisions. The APC is planning a grand reception in his honor alongside lawmakers, councillors and members of the State Executive Council, also crossing over from the PDP. With this defection, the ruling party now controls 3 of the 5 states in Nigeria's southeast region, marking a major political realignment. Supporters say Mbah's move could strengthen ties with the federal government and attract more development to Enugu State. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, has postponed its 103rd National Executive Committee meeting, earlier scheduled for Wednesday, October 15, 2025. The announcement was made by the National Publicity Secretary, Debo Ogunlagba, after an emergency meeting of the National Working Committee in Abuja. Ogunlagba urged all NEC members to take note of the postponement and await further communication from the National Secretariat. The development comes amid mounting defections to the ruling All Progressives Congress. However, the chairman of the PDP Governors Forum and Bauchi State Governor, Bala Mohammed, says the party remains united and focused. The presidential pardon granted to 175 convicted persons, including individuals convicted of drug trafficking, kidnapping, illegal mining, coup plotting, and posthumous pardons for historical figures, has stirred a widespread debate. Intense criticism of the decision by the president is now making the rounds, as this has witnessed a political backlash, with civil rights groups also condemning the decision. News Central's Aisha Saliu reports.
Shortly after a Council of State meeting, President Bola Tinubu announced clemency and reprieve for a variety of convicted felons in the exercise of the prerogative of mercy conferred on him by Section 175 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Out of the 175 beneficiaries of the presidential pardon, 41 are illegal minors, 28 drug traffickers, and 22 murderers topped the list. Also included are foreigners, coup plotters, and corrupt politicians.
The challenge is now when we have persons of questionable character who faced their time in the court and were sentenced accordingly, being pardoned. You know, it can really cause a lot of torture to people who were the victims of those people, particularly persons that were killed and their killer were given pardon.
Nigeria also seek legal mutual assistance in order to deal with so many issues, like even issues around access recovery. So what this pardoning has done is to damage that relationship with Nigeria and international communities.
Although it has been described as an act of mercy and national healing, some have condemned it as a reckless act, undermining the rule of law, including gross injustice for smaller offences and offenders, many of those unfairly jailed and awaiting trial.
It begs the question of, is it worthy enough for we to find NDLE officer pursuing after people who do drug trafficking? Is it worthy enough to find police officers risk their life to get evidence, hard fact evidence, and prosecute in courts?
You are going to promote societal evils, because people will feel that, okay, as long as I have connection or I am close to the power, I can commit any offense, and if I run out of luck, they even arrested me or they jail me, I will still be given presidential pardon.
Civil rights leaders are, however, urging caution, where cases for consideration should show the delicate balance between mercy, accountability, and public confidence on the rule of law. In Abuja, for News Central, Aishat Salihu.
The federal government says that it is stepping up efforts to mitigate the impact of flooding and other natural disasters across Nigeria. The Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Dr. Yusuf Sununu, made this known at a roundtable held in Abuja to mark the 2025 International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. News Central State House correspondent Bettina Nweli reports.
The event brought together lawmakers and development partners, all uniting in the call for stronger resilience against disasters. The Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Zubaida Umar, highlighted the growing threat of disasters worsened by climate change, conflict, and pandemics.
Resilience must be mainstreamed across sectors, from agriculture, water resources, energy, and infrastructure to finance, education, and health. In this regard, NEMA is already working with key stakeholders to develop a national risk monitoring and information platform.
Beyond flooding, Nigeria is also dealing with outbreaks like diphtheria, Lassa fever, and cholera, further straining communities and livelihoods. These recurring crises expose the country's limited disaster response, preparedness, and highlight.
At the event, 2 landmark policy documents were officially launched: the NEMA Strategic Plan 2025 to 2029 and the National Disaster Risk Reduction Strategy 2025 to 2030. Both frameworks aim to mainstream disaster resilience into key sectors, including agriculture, water resources, infrastructure, finance, and health.
His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR emphasizes this need to treat resilience as a national policy. We are integrating disaster risk reduction into every sector, from agriculture and infrastructure to education and health, while expanding early warning systems to ensure that communities receive timely alert before floods, droughts, or disaster outbreaks. We are strengthening state and local emergency management agencies through training, technology, and coordination support.
The new strategies, according to NEMA, will also explore innovative financing mechanisms such as catastrophe bonds, insurance pools, and climate funds to ensure long-term sustainability in Nigeria's disaster risk management efforts. In Abuja, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
Let's talk business now. Nigeria has joined fellow Commonwealth nations in advancing a $2 trillion intra-Commonwealth trade initiative aiming to deepen economic ties and foster sustainable growth by 2030. This plan, discussed at the Commonwealth Finance Ministers meeting in Washington, D.C., leverages lower trade costs among member countries due to shared frameworks. Nigeria's Minister of State for Finance, Dr. Doris Uzoka-Anite, reconfirmed the country's commitment to the agenda and called for increased funding to drive job creation and economic transformation. The initiative seeks to boost trade connectivity, innovation, and investment, positioning Nigeria as a key player in the Commonwealth's growth strategy. Let's take a look at foreign stories. In a historic breakthrough, U.S. President Donald Trump has declared a tremendous day for the Middle East after a landmark Gaza ceasefire declaration was signed in Egypt. The agreement, backed by Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the U.S., follows a dramatic prisoner exchange. Hamas freed the last 20 hostages held in Gaza, while Israel released nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. Speaking in Israel and later at the summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, Trump called the deal the end of a painful nightmare. The joint declaration pledges peace and rebuilding in Gaza, but notably avoids mentioning a one or two state solution.
Suffering and bloodshed, the war in Gaza is over. Humanitarian aid is now pouring in, including hundreds of truckloads of food, medical equipment, and other supplies, much of it paid for by people in this room.
Now, for more on this, I'm joined by our senior international correspondent and anchor, Afia Hagen. Afia, tell us, what's the latest on the hostages released from Gaza and Israel yesterday? We've seen a lot of jubilation, but what's happening there? How are the people reacting to it?
The emotional scenes on both sides as we had those 20 hostages released in Gaza, the Israeli hostages in two batches, a group of 7, then a group of 13, and then you had around 1,700 Palestinian detainees were also released in Israel. More emotional scenes as they were reunited with their relatives also. What's remaining is the bodies of the hostages who died in captivity. Now, 4 of those bodies for release yesterday. There's thought to be around 19 bodies still to be released. Families pretty angry that Hamas haven't released those bodies yet. There is the complication that perhaps Hamas don't know where all those remains are, and they are trying to gather them together, and that is what is taking time. You had 4 of those bodies, like I said, released yesterday, and families are awaiting the rest of those bodies being released so they can give them a proper burial, and hoping that will happen over the coming hours and days.
Right. Also, I mean, do we know whether or not, because we talked about the release of 2,000 hostages on one side, do we know if all the hostages have now been released or there's still some in captivity?
Well, when it comes to the Israeli hostages, all of them have been released. The 20 living hostages, like I said, and then the remains of the remaining 23 or so hostages are being released this week. When it comes to the hostages on the Palestinian side, so those Palestinian captives who were taken, not all of them have been released. Not all Palestinian prisoners were cleared for release, though some of them who are still in captivity. But like we said, around 1,800 of them have been released. So like I said, it's that we're waiting for the rest of those bodies. There was 28 bodies believed to still be there. So that's what we're waiting for this week.
All right, Afia Hagen, News Central's international correspondent and anchor, thank you for joining us and giving us the update on that. Still on the international scene, opposition candidate Issa Chiroma Bakary has declared victory in Cameroon's presidential election, even as official results are not expected for another 2 weeks. His early announcement has heightened political tension in a nation long ruled by President Paul Biya. Chiroma, a former minister who defected to the opposition earlier this year, gained momentum after key rival Maurice Kamto was disqualified from the race. Unofficial tallies circulating online have added to uncertainty, while journalists report restricted access to polling stations and threats for publishing independent counts. Meanwhile, as Cameroonians wait for official election results, the mood across the country is one of cautious calm and uncertainty. All eyes are on the Constitutional Council, which is yet to announce the final outcome. Our correspondent Kathleen Ndongmo reports on the messages from the opposition leaders, the public mood, and new warnings from government officials to journalists and citizens as the nation enters a tense post-election period.
The mood across Cameroon is a blend of concern, optimism, and at times helplessness as citizens wait for the Constitutional Council's announcement of the presidential election results. In the northern city of Garoua, the stronghold of opposition candidate Issa Chiroma Bakary, calm has largely returned after tensions on election day that saw clashes between security forces and supporters. The Union for Change, a coalition bringing together more than 50 opposition parties and civil society organizations, has declared Chiroma the winner based on its own parallel vote count. The coalition claims he secured wide margins in urban centers such as Yaoundé and Douala, and an even stronger lead in the north. Other opposition candidates have also spoken publicly. Akare Muna described the moment as, quote, a new dawn, saying Cameroonians had spoken with a voice that is clear, resounding and undeniable, urging the government to honor what he called a sacred duty. Hiram Iyodi said his party would align with the will of the people, while Ateki Seta-Caxton, who earlier endorsed rival candidate Bello Buba Maigari, congratulated Chiroma Bakary for what he called a commanding performance. He also appealed for calm and responsibility. In contrast, supporters of the ruling party have also been sharing results sheets suggesting victories for the incumbent. Some citizens have questioned whether the government's warnings against releasing preliminary results will also apply equally to them. Territorial Administration Minister Paul Atanganji has cautioned against the spread of fake or unofficial election figures, reminding the public that only the Constitutional Council has the authority to proclaim results. He warned that those sharing unverified data could face legal consequences. The National Communication Council has issued a similar statement urging both journalists and social media users to refrain from posting unofficial results. Observers and analysts have praised Cameroonians for what they have described as a mature election process, noting a higher voter turnout and a renewed sense of political engagement. Candidates now have 72 hours from the close of polls to submit petitions challenging the results before the Constitutional Council. Now, whether these elections will trigger a wave of legal challenges remains to be seen.
We're still in the season of heavy showers and foggy windscreens because, of course, the rains aren't going away just yet. And while most Nigerians are just trying to stay dry, the federal government is trying something new, handing over the flood fight to the people themselves. Now, under a new initiative, communities are being empowered to manage their own safety in cases of flood and even in cases of other disasters. Now, it's called the Community Safety and Flood Management Project. A fancy name, but the idea is simple. Teach locals how to predict, prepare, and protect themselves before the flood comes. It's a big shift from waiting to respond after the damage to giving communities early warning tools, safety training, and response kits. Basically, it's saying we trust you to take charge of your own survival. Now, that should be a smart move if it actually happens, because empowerment isn't just about workshops and speeches. It's about real equipment, real funding, and real follow-through. But the questions are, who bears the cost of displacement camps? Who equips them? Who even builds them? Who furnishes them and provides these people with food and basic amenities? It can't be the people, of course not. So, to what extent will their own management be? Is this a step in the right direction? Year after year, the floods sweep away billions in crops, homes, and livelihoods. Maybe this time, with people trained and ready, the story actually changes. You see, because when the floods come, and they will, it's not the press briefing or the sirens that save lives. It's the people on ground, the sandbag in hand, fighting to keep their world from sinking. So again, people are asking, if you trust us this much, are you also trusting us with facilities and things to equip us to fight the flood? Or are you just leaving everything to the citizens? And that's your postscript.